of Roysambu Ward. You are aware of that engagement. Roysambu Ward, Honorable Chair, is one of the largest wards in terms of population, but that entire ward has no public ECDE. So when I was there was a piece of land that I was shown, somewhere on Lumumba Drive, just off Lumumba Drive, that had allegedly been grabbed by some church that had been set aside for a public ECDE. So, Governor, in terms of specific wards such as Roysambu that do not have an ECD center, it would be important for you to address what your government is doing in order to have the kids who live in Roysambu ward also have access to ECD facilities. Secondly, Honorable Chair, I have 4 wards here that have only one ECD, despite having very large populations. In Kayole Central, we have one at Bondeni. I think it was put together in 2024. And you know the population in that area, Governor. Mihango Ward in Embakasi East, we have only one ECD. And then Ruai in Kasarani, which is, I think, the largest ward, has only one center, Honorable Chair, making it very difficult for many kids to access. And then lastly, in Korogosho ward of Waraka, where we only have one public ECD center, which is very under-resourced and overcrowded. Governor, I'm sure, if you visit. Kayole Central, Mihango in Embakasi East, Ruai in Kasarani, which is the largest ward, and then Korogosho in Waraka. Then there are wards that have incomplete and under-resourced ECD centers, Honorable Chair, and these are the ones that I would want you to address again, Governor. In Jiru Ward in Kasarani, the centers are incomplete. Some of them don't even have toilets and play areas. Madare North in Ruaraka, this one we found that they have very high pupil to teacher ratios. Dandora RF4 in Embakasi North, which are in very poor condition, Governor. Then in Molem in Embakasi West, they have only one center that has no space. And I think also there was a concern about the lack of trained ECD teachers in Molem. So if those ones can be addressed, Honorable Chair, we want to see what the Governor's plan is in terms of addressing these concerns. So we have only 228 of those ECD centers across 85 wards. And we would ideally, Governor, wish to have 2 to 3 centers per ward based on the population density. And then we saw in your budget in 2024, you only allocated 116 million shillings to complete these tolled ones that I have mentioned in Jiru, in Madare North, in Dandora, and in Modem. So I think those are the concerns that we have. And then finally, Chair, on the school feeding program, this is a pet project of the Governor. He's usually very proud of it. But there is a conversation we have had, Governor, since the inception of this program. He knows that 70% of the school-going children in Nairobi are not actually in public schools. They are in informal schools, those ones that they call up-bed schools. The Governor gave an undertaking, I think it's been 2 years now, that feeding program would be extended to the informal schools, because what is essentially happening is that we are using that 1.8 billion shillings that he's talking about to feed only 30% of our school-going kids. And that is unfair. It is unfair. And most of these kids in these informal schools is not that they would not want to be in those public primary schools, but we simply don't have the space to feed all of those students there. So, Governor, where are we on the promise you made to extend the feeding program to the up-bed schools? I thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Senator. And since you are leaving, I'll request the Governor to answer that, and then we can move on.
Thank you, Chair, for those questions from my Senator. Chair, some of the information is not correct. I'll start with the issue of the wards without ECDs. Roysambu ward has Roysambu Primary, which has an ECD. There is also, I've just seen over here, Marurui preschool is also in Roysambu ward. So there are actually 2 in that ward. Roysambu preschool and Marurui. Rosambu Primary is not in Rosambu Ward, but it's just right next. It's in Zimmerman Ward, but it's right next. Some of our wards are so close to each other that not every ward has, but ideally you want every ward to have, an ECD, but they're really close. The wards that need the most attention are the vast wards, like Ruai. Ruai is the biggest ward, possibly actually it's the biggest ward in the county, And in Ruai ward, we have, there are actually 6. There's Ruai Primary, there's Kitwambu, there's Highway Manyata, there's Mondo, Athi, and Kamulu. Those ones have ECD centers. I think what maybe the concern was being raised is standalone ECDs that may not exist.
That is what we are talking about, government.
But these are within our primary schools. In Miango we have Miango Primary, we have Skyway, we have GSU, we have Utawala. That is next to that ward. What is this? ICAP as well. Kayole Central, we have 3. There is Imara Primary, Buneni and Mongaza. We also have one that, you see, some of these might not find themselves in the education budget. They're in the ward-based program budget. So I know in Kayole Central, for instance, we built a brand new full ECD through the ward-based program budget in that ward. And I think the response really should be amended to incorporate those ones that are built not through the education budget per se, but also through the ward-based program. Many MCAs, or rather the ward committees, prioritize either adding classrooms or building standalone ECDs. But that piece of land that we're talking about in Rosambu is something that we're actually following up, even with the National Land Commission to retrieve, to get back. Chair, we did an exercise beginning 2022 of getting title deeds for our schools. It's been an ongoing discussion. Many of the schools, we had the original titles, actually around 100 of them, because all of these were county properties. The challenge that came with NLC was them saying which function is delivered in that school. Is it a national function or a county function? And they made an attempt to say that they will produce the titles and give them to the national government, which we opposed as Nairobi, because we have not transferred that asset to the national government. So even as the language we should have is not that we have ECD centers in primary schools. It is that we have primary schools in our ECD centers. Because the government entity that owns and builds that infrastructure is the county government, So that is where we have, we're still going back and forth, and there's a transition at NLC right now. But we secured most of those schools in terms of titles. I can give the list of those that we gave copies of the titles for them to know. We can be able to furnish this.
So on the land in Lumumba Drive, what is the status now?
That is also within NLC. It's part of what we've asked for reservation.
Is the matter in court?
No, there's no court matter on that. There's no court matter. And Chair, we've actually been able to get more land than just that. 1,000 and something parcels of land that came to be owned by the county through surrender, through subdivisions. You do a subdivision, you do provision for public utilities. And so many of those now are at NLC for what we call reservation to the county government, so that we can have space to build more schools. It is true, there is a severe shortage of schools in Nairobi. And that's a historical problem, and a political problem. Since 1992, when multipartyism started, very few schools were built in the city. When the national government at that point lost grip of the county. And so you find, and I'm sure in many of your counties, Senator Kamal, when we were starting the school feeding program in Rosambu, the president was shocked that we had 210 public schools, and he gave the example when he was an MP of Eldoret North, he had 150 schools in one constituency, yet we have 17 constituencies, which is why we moved to build 5,000 classrooms. The national government through CDF doing 3,500 and the county government targeting to do 1,500 classrooms, because we must bring those children from the informal schools to public schools. These informal schools, or rather UPBET schools, and I've had a lot of interaction with the chair of UPBET and the teachers, or Kono ETC. They're not the ideal school for a child to be in. You know, those schools, we had a case of one collapsing and children dying. The infrastructure is not concrete. The school is a church on Sunday, on Monday it's a women's meeting, Tuesday it's karate. You know, it is, they're really not ideal, Chair, for our children. And so we really need affirmative action for Nairobi County. And Chair, we would appeal to the Senate also to consider a conditional grant to bring Nairobi to the level of other counties in terms of number of schools. You cannot have 210 schools with a population of 7 million. You know, and you can comparatively look at all counties. I know Senator Nyandarua has more than triple the number of schools I'm talking about. Yet the population is a small fraction of the population we have. That is a challenge that Nairobi County has. It's a historical challenge, and so we're doing our part to increase the number of schools. Chair, our focus on this incomplete and under-resourced schools, Chair, is really budget constraints. It's really budget constraints. Chair, in the ideal situation, we would want to have, as we said, starting with the ECDE, the ratio of 1 is to 33 is too high. We need to come down, but we need more of our students in our public, schools. A child goes through the entire education system. When they get to the exams, they're in centers that are not recognized, and you find a scramble for them to actually go to exams in another different center. Chair, I think finally, maybe I can even point out a modem. It has not been written for me. Modem, there is actually ECDE in the Superloaf Primary School. Korogosho.
Maybe, Governor, as you are pointing out these ECDs, is differentiate those schools with classes and those with ECD centers.
Chair, it depends on the definition of an ECD center. I can give an example. If you go down the road to Kongoni Primary School in South Bay, the school is owned by us as a county. We built the school. The bulk of the classes are primary classes. Then you have 5 of them set aside to be ECD. Our center manager has an office. There is a playground. So it's a comprehensive school. It has ECD and it has the primary component.
Yeah, that we agree, but what we get in most of the counties we go to is the ECD centers. Actually, most of them are domiciled in schools, but are they set aside? And how many are we talking about? Okay, you could have more streams. So if you have a center with maybe 5-6 classes and playground and an office, then that qualifies to be an ECD, and that is what maybe the senator is asking, because you find some people would feel that in their schools they don't have an ECD center because they have classes. So even for us, we would like to know in those schools how many are centers and how many are in classes.
And ask my
and also, Chair, so that we can answer together. Each ECD should be apart from the other, only 600 meters. Is that the same with Nairobi?
No, it's not possible in Nairobi.
Because that is the guideline that is there.
It is not possible. I think that works in counties with a lot of land. You know, in Nairobi, you can't get 600 meters from the primary school. So we've integrated them. You know, just because we have 696 square kilometers, and land is extremely expensive. And so that guideline, we're not able to comply with that. And so our schools, the standalone, is it 35? 30. The standalones, which are just purely ECD only, are 35. But the ones integrated are the 210, which are within still our infrastructure, which is why we've been able to do more development. We've built the kitchens in those schools, we do halls in those schools. We've had to remove many churches in these schools because we found people had long-term leases to build churches in schools. And I'm a Christian, but I tell them that is not how we should do it, because that infrastructure really is for our children. You know, I can give you an example of Parklands Primary, where the space where we were to build more classrooms had been taken over by a church, and they were, and it wasn't that they come on Sunday only. They actually build physical infrastructure in the school during the week. And I called that pastor. I told him, look, we're all Christians, but this is not right. And
Governor, I hate to interrupt, but because I have to leave just, I'm requested to address these 4 on the stalled, or the ones that are stalled, or the ones that lack essential amenities like toilets, the ones in Jiru, Madare North, Dandora, Area 4 and Molem. Just those four so that I can leave.
Molem, there is super.
Because there's one center.
Yeah, in super.
I agree. So the question was if we have qualified or trained ECD teachers.
Oh yes. In all our schools, we are close to 1,000. They are qualified and they're trained. Chair, we've not done a recruitment for a while. You realize the quagmire we have also with the ratio, but we're going to do it. I think for all stall projects, Chair, our intention is to finish. They're not just in schools. Whether it is roads, etc. It's a budgetary issue. It is just a revenue issue. But we intend, in this current budget that we have, we reduced new projects so to complete all stall projects. And that's a question that was in the devolution committee. Chair, earlier the Senator had brought up that issue. Devolution Senator have been coming from the Senate, and I can table that. Including last week, I was supposed to be Public Accounts Committee. I received a letter on Monday telling me not to come. Public Investment Committee, the same. The only one was devolution, and I spoke to also Senator Catherine Muma. That one we will come and answer that question. A very important thing has been raised by the Senator. And I'll tell you, Senator, I agree with you fully. If it was up to me, every single child in Nairobi should be on dish in accounting. Every single child. Chair, we're feeding 316,000 children every day. We've built 17 central kitchens. Our partner has one big kitchen that has 60,000 meals. We've published regulations that now will allow even the public, because we'll set up a board, that has people from the private sector, the auditors, ETC, whoever, so that it's owned by the public. It's really, yeah, it's mainly a resource question. So what we've done, Senator, we've mapped out all the informal schools closest to a public primary school. Because what we intend to do is that at lunchtime, if a child is in an upward school, in Madare for instance, at lunchtime, they can go to Duruno Primary, have lunch and go back to their school. Because you cannot deliver to all of those schools, but we're looking at the closest ones. To deliver it, we need to build an extra 68 kitchens to actually fill that capacity. Because as you've said, if you look at a third, compare 20 kitchens vis-a-vis the population, we're looking for support, monetary support to actually build those extra kitchens. It would be ideal. What I don't agree with is saying that we should not feed the ones we can. So that, because we can't feed all of the ones we can. Today, Chair, if you go to most parts of the city during a school day, you will not find the children would find during the day, street children, because they're in school because of food. These children don't even finish their food. They pack it and take it back home to their parents or to their siblings. It's a dire issue. In fact, my challenge now is what to do during the holidays. Because many parents are saying, yes, thank you, you cover them during the school days, but the holidays, we have a problem in some areas, Now, once these regulations are done, of course, we should depend on a reliable stream of resources. But using this watch, Chair, you will be able to adopt a child. People in the private sector can say, I'll feed a child for a month, I'll feed a child for a year. It is not sustainable, but it's the best that we can do for now. Chair, if we got additional resources, even a grant. In fact, if you look at the money, and I would like you as a committee to call NACONEC, the national body that deals with school feeding, some of those budgets should be transferred to us. Because you cannot compare the efficiency at all with what we do. So Senator, the plan is there. We're going to pilot in a few constituencies, mainly Madare constituency, Waraka and Dagoretti North, which is where we have a lot of the upgrade schools. We'll pilot, but it's really a resource issue. It is not.
Yeah, so we just address timelines, and then Governor wasn't there, an undertaking by the national government to match the money from the county in terms of a feeding program. Is that being done?
It is not. Chair, there was an undertaking to match shilling by shilling. We have invoiced the national government up to, because the last year was 800 million, we've actually updated the invoice. It's close to now 2 billion shillings that they need to match to the county. They have not done it. The intergovernmental agreement that we've signed, that is deposited, talks about a matching of shilling for shilling on the school feeding program. Not a cent has been sent to Nairobi County. We've been handling it ourselves. So, Chair, that is something also you can pick up. I have spoken to the CS, the current CS, Migos Ogamba. I had raised it to the former CS, what's his name? Machogu. And I've raised it at the highest levels of this government. So, Chair, also the Senate can assist us with that, so that they can honor their part of it.
Thank you, Senator Sifuna. Thank you so much. At least there was okay. I have a senator who came in. Please come on record. And Senator Sifuna, if you have any concerns that you want this committee to deal with, please forward them to us.
My name is John Kenya, Senator of Laikipia.